Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name's Wright. I'm a landscape photographer based in Granada, Spain. Now, those of you who follow the channel will know that last week I promised that I was going to do architectural photography, demonstrate a new Canon 11 to 24mm lens that I purchased and have a look at DxO's viewpoint. Unfortunately, no sooner had I finished recording the video last week than I succumbed to a particularly nasty bout of COVID-19, and I have actually been in bed ever since. So today's the first day up. You can probably hear it a little bit in my voice, but actually I'm well on the way to recovery, so all good. However, there is no architectural photography. I have not taken a single photograph in a week. So what I wanted to talk about today, and is particularly pertinent in a sense because I've never felt less like taking a photograph, is strategies that we might use to get over creative block in our photography. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, now all of these strategies depend on getting outside of ourselves and doing things differently. The idea here is that we take what made us into photographers in the first place, which is the sensation, the joy, if you like, the duende of taking a good photograph, and that seems to connect us to the landscape, it connects us to the camera, the equipment, everything about it is positive. And really it's an attempt to sort of reconnect to those values. So we want to replace the feeling of, the weather's fantastic this morning, beautiful light, lovely temperature, oh my God, I really don't feel like going out. Replace that with the original feeling that we had was, let's go. What we probably need to do is to give ourselves a little jog and really sort of nudge ourselves out of this frame of mind and to rediscover that, if you like, naive interest, the naive joy of being out there in the landscape. And there's a number of strategies that I've developed. They're not particularly original, they're not particularly deep, but they do seem to work, which is why I'm sharing them here. All right, so first strategy. The one that works slightly better for me, I think, is actually going to an exhibition. And this is ironic because it was at the Joel Meyerowitz exhibition that I believe that I contracted COVID-19, so it's actually caused the malaise rather than cured it. But I want to talk a little bit about my sensations moving through that exhibition, because this is something that really motivates me. So the story of the Meyerowitz exhibition is that when he was a comparatively young man, sort of mid-20s, he came to Spain with his wife and he did a big tour of Andalusia. He was largely centered around Malaga, but he did a lot of traveling, a lot of driving, and he fired off 700 rolls of film. And he didn't develop the rolls of film until he got back to the United States, and on the back of the quality of what he found there in the films, he was able to get an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art, and it was that exhibition that really kick-started his career. So it was a hell of an achievement. Quite how you go about shooting 700 rolls of film or shooting the equivalent in digital without looking at the pictures and learning from them is more than I know. I can't fathom actually how that works because, to me, looking at my own pictures is one of the ways that I improve, because I look at them, I analyse them, and so on and so forth. However, the thing that I found so fascinating about Meyerowitz's exhibition is not just that the obvious antecedents of street photography are there for all to see, It's two things. One is how brilliant he was at capturing what he calls the hola moment, when everything comes together. So in his case, a lot of this was about street photography. It was just capturing that moment, the moment that Cartier-Bresson calls the decisive moment, and clicking the shutter at exactly that moment. This is much, much harder with film than it is with digital, but he was an absolute master at it. But the thing that really caught my eye in the exhibition, beyond the sheer wonder of the street photography, was the landscape photography, because I think that what that inspired in me was a feeling of actually, he doesn't see the landscape in any way that is particularly different from the way that I see the landscape. So it gave me a set of photographs to look at that I thought were accessible, that I thought that I could see myself taking some of those shots. And I don't mean this in the way that, you know, I'm 68 years old. It's taken me arguably 68 years to get to a point that Meyerowitz reached in 25 years shooting film. So there is absolutely no comparison in that sense, but the sense of being inspired by another photographer's work is very real, and it gets you out of your comfort zone, and it revitalizes the sense of enthusiasm and the sense of wonder that you have about photography in the first place. So this is a real good strategy for revitalizing yourself. Okay, now the next few examples are things that you can practically do with your camera that don't necessitate the expense of travelling 100 miles to go to an exhibition and catch COVID, as I did. These are simple hacks that anybody can do. So number one in these simple hacks, right, put a different lens on your camera. Get out of your comfort zone. So my background as a commercial photographer is very much about getting the perfect shot, and so I'm very, very comfortable with certain combinations of bodies and lenses, and I know what I can expect from them. And this is a good thing in many, many ways. It means that I'm capable of getting out there, capturing that sunset or capturing that dawn, and knowing that I can do it justice and get exactly what I want. But when all my pictures start to look the same, and this is a real symptom of creative block, you look at your work and go, oh my God, I've just been taking the same photograph over and over again. It really helps to do something different. So recently what I did was to buy a Canon 11 to 24mm lens and do some architectural photography. And this is a real good kickstart, because it gets you out of your mindset that has become like a prison. It gets you out and you start to see things differently, and this is absolutely key. It's triggering the see things differently bit, because when you see things differently in architecture, it's of course straight lines instead of curves and instead of light tones, and you'll get a more abrupt black and white contrast often. It's about taking what you see in one genre, if you like, into another genre, and it sort of kickstarts your creativity. A second way of doing this is to shoot in black and white if you're a colour photographer, or if you're a black and white photographer, try shooting in colour for a while, because it's a completely different medium almost. So black and white, you're exclusively bothered about tones and texture. In colour, of course, you have far more colours to deal with, and the whole thing about colour science starts to come into play, where you start looking for complementary colours, looking for colours that will go well, or colours that will clash. But in so doing add something to the composition. So it's a completely different mindset, and it's really useful to inhabit that mindset for a while, in search of your muse, if you like, or in search of a little bit of inspiration for how you do your photography normally. Third one is try doing a different genre completely of photography. Now, I have found that for me, macro photography works absolutely brilliantly in doing this, and partially I think this is because macro photography is tiny landscapes. So you're getting away from doing the big landscape and the big statement pictures, the panoramas, the spread of it all. You're getting towards doing tiny little landscapes with tiny little details, and it's different, it's fascinating, and I can spend a great deal of time behind a macro lens if I'm not careful. Requires probably, if you're going to do this properly, requires lighting and specialized lenses, but I do think every photographer should at least have the 100mm macro lens, because it's a total escape from what you're doing normally. Otherwise, try things, if you're a landscape photographer, try doing a bit of portrait photography or doing self-portraits. It's a different discipline, and it will start you thinking, it will get you out of the rut, and this is so important. Now, another hack that I use to stimulate my creative juices is writing. So writing about photography may seem a little bit like dancing about architecture. In the sense it's a completely different discipline, and what I think is interesting about it, again, is it forces you to start to analyze things, but there's a very practical application of this in landscape photography, because what I'm getting at is research and writing. So if I live in the Lightroom Valley near Granada, and it's the most beautiful landscape, absolutely gorgeous. Historically, the Lightroom Valley is a lush, fertile valley that is nestled between extremely inhospitable mountains. So up in the Sierra Nevada, very little grows. It's like a moonscape, and to a lesser extent, the mountains on the other side between us and the coast are fairly inhospitable places. So the valley was much prized by the original inhabitants, and when the Moors came from North Africa and invaded Spain, and basically took Spain over and brought the most amazingly sophisticated water systems and agricultural techniques with them, and really transformed this whole area of Spain. And the traces of that are still here, so we still have the waterways that were put in by the Moors thousands and thousands of years ago, so it's quite incredible. And when you research it, you learn that the little villages, of which there are 7 or 8 scattered around the Lightroom Valley, were originally fortified in the sense that they all had watchtowers. They were all able to communicate with one another, and of course the danger was invaders coming from the north, the dreaded Christians, and pirates coming from the south, from North Africa. And of course the Moors coming from North Africa themselves would be extremely conscious of the threat of pirates coming from the south. So they had these watchtowers, and they used to burn like a bonfire on top of them in order to alert the next watchtower in the chain that there was an oncoming threat. And I find that this sort of history, it seeps into my photography in unexpected ways, so it becomes not just a chocolate box landscape, but you kind of want to portray it as it's always been. And the most obvious example of all of this is actually up in the Sierra Nevada, which is a landscape that hasn't changed literally in millions of years. And you can be up there and you can absolutely almost see the dinosaurs you know, stomping across the landscape, eating everything in their path. And it's like Mars up there, an unbelievable landscape. But this sort of sensibility is what really lifts you up as a landscape photographer, and it's it's what enthuses you and really feeds the creativity. So to get back to my original point, I think that writing about photography is really constructive. It really does help you to look at things in a different way. And I've been writing my blog for quite a few years now. And before that, other blogs and so on, back into the distant past. Writing has always been a major part of what I do, and I find it very stimulating. So yeah, another great way of kickstarting your creativity. Okay guys, if you could take a moment just to nip down below the video and hit the like button, that would be fantastic. The like button is very important on YouTube. It's not simply the gratification of having lots of likes, it's the like button that triggers the algorithm to go and show this video to somebody else that's interested in creative blogs. So it has a very practical use, and in ticking it, you're helping other people get to see the video. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button as well. We publish a video every week on a big range of subjects, all of which are to do with photography. So we deal with the creative element of photography, as well as videos about cameras, about lenses, about software, hardware, and so on. So if that sounds like the sort of channel you'd be interested in, hit the subscribe button. Finally, the experience of just talking about photography during the course, when I started making this video about an hour ago, I really didn't feel like taking photographs, and just talking through these points has actually inspired me to a point where afterwards, instead of editing the video, I'm probably going to grab my camera and get outside and take some photographs. So it's worked for me. I hope there's some stuff in this video that you found useful. And next week, I think normal service will be resumed. I will shake off the remains of this awful bloody disease, and COVID will be no more. And I'm going to get out there. And next week, I hope we're going to get that architecture video done. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.